What if a comedian could lead a nation through war? What if laughter became courage and jokes turned into powerful speeches? This is not a movie. This is the real story of Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the man who went from the stage to the battlefield, from television scripts to international headlines. In this video, you'll learn English through one of the most incredible true stories of our time. Listen closely, follow the subtitles, and discover new vocabulary as we take you on the journey of a president who changed the world with his voice. Did you know that one of the world's most powerful presidents used to make people laugh on stage? Before Volodymyr Zelenskyy stood in front of the world as a wartime leader, he was just a young boy growing up in a quiet city in Ukraine. His life did not begin in politics. It began in a small apartment with a family who never imagined their son would one day lead a nation during its darkest hours. Zelenskyy was born in 1978 in a city called Kryvyi Rih. This city is in the central part of Ukraine. It is not a famous place. There are no golden beaches or tall mountains. It is an industrial city full of factories and gray buildings. Life there was simple and sometimes hard. The people were strong. They worked every day to support their families, and little Volodymyr was just like any other boy. His parents were smart and hardworking. His father, Oleksandr, was a professor. He taught computer science at a local university. His mother, Rima, worked as an engineer. They were a Jewish family, and although religion was not often spoken about in Soviet Ukraine, their cultural identity was always there in the background. They valued education, respect, and honesty. These were the lessons they passed on to their son. As a child, Volodymyr loved to laugh. He loved stories, cartoons, and funny shows. He watched movies and dreamed of performing on a stage. He was small, with bright eyes and quick movements. His teachers noticed that he was clever. He spoke clearly and remembered things easily. But he also liked to joke, sometimes too much. In class, he would make his friends laugh even when the teacher was serious. At home, he would act out little plays for his parents. He used funny voices and made silly faces. His mother would laugh. His father would try not to smile, but sometimes he couldn't help it. They didn't know that their little boy, who loved to pretend, would one day pretend to be a president on television, and later become the real one. As he grew older, Zelenskyy became more interested in language. He studied Russian and Ukrainian, but he also wanted to learn English. In the 1980s and 1990s, English was not common in Ukraine, but he listened to songs and tried to understand the words. He watched American movies and copied the actors. He liked how they spoke. It sounded strong and clear. He wanted to sound like that too. In school, he joined clubs and activities. He was not the best at sports, but he was good at speaking and performing. He entered competitions. He told jokes. He memorized poems and gave speeches. He was always trying to connect with people. He had a special gift. When he talked, people listened. And when he made a joke, everyone laughed. This was not just talent. Zelenskyy worked hard. He practiced his lines. He watched videos of great comedians. He studied their timing, their voices, their faces. He wanted to learn every part of their art. Comedy was not just fun, it was a skill. And he wanted to be the best. When he was 16, something exciting happened. His family had a chance to move to Israel. Many Jewish families were leaving Ukraine at the time. Life in Israel was different. There were more opportunities, better schools, and safety. But Zelenskyy didn't go. His father said no. He wanted to stay. He believed in Ukraine. This decision changed everything. Volodymyr stayed. He finished school. He chose to study law at a local university. At first, people thought he would become a lawyer or work in government, but something else was calling him. Comedy. Performance, entertainment. That was where his heart was. During his time at university, he joined a comedy competition called KVN. This was a famous show across the Soviet Union. Teams from different cities would write and perform funny sketches. They would travel, compete, and try to make the judges laugh. Zelenskyy was a star. He had perfect timing, a quick mind, and a warm smile. People loved him. He created a comedy group with his friends. They called it Kvartal 95, named after the area of their city. They wrote jokes about daily life, politics, and culture. Their humor was smart but kind. They didn't hurt people. They made people think and laugh at the same time. Little by little, Zelenskyy became famous. First in his city, then across the country. People knew his face. They watched him on television. They repeated his jokes. He was not just a performer, he was becoming a voice of the people. But even as he became more successful, he never forgot his roots. He still spoke about his hometown. He visited his old school. He talked to students. He told them to believe in themselves, even if they came from small places. "Big dreams can live in small cities," he said, and he meant it. His childhood gave him something special. He understood what life was like for normal people. He knew what it felt like to have a small apartment, a busy father, and a tired mother. He knew how it felt to want more but not know how to get it. These memories stayed with him. They helped shape the man he would become. Before the world knew his name, before the war, before the speeches, before the international interviews, there was just a boy with a big heart and a funny voice. A boy who liked to make people laugh. A boy who believed in the power of words. And that belief would one day help him speak to millions, not as a comedian, but as a president. So the next time you hear the name Zelensky, remember, every leader starts somewhere. Every strong voice was once a whisper. And sometimes, the ones who make us laugh the most can also lead us when we need it most. Let's keep going and discover how this young man's journey took him from laughter to leadership. As Zelensky's love for comedy grew, so did his ambitions. The group he started with his university friends, Kvartal-95, was more than just a small-time act. It was becoming a powerful voice in Ukrainian entertainment. They performed sketches that made fun of daily life, of politicians, of things people were afraid to say out loud. Their humor was bold but clever. People felt that someone was finally saying what they were thinking. Their shows became wildly popular. First, they appeared on local stages, then on national TV. Kvartal-95 was not just a comedy troupe, it became a brand. They toured across the country. They sold out theaters. People waited all week just to watch their shows. Zelensky wasn't just another funny guy, he was the face of a movement that used humor to shine a light on serious issues. He played many roles. Sometimes he was a clumsy teacher. Sometimes he was a confused police officer. Other times he was a proud Ukrainian trying to understand the world. But every character had something in common. They felt real. Zelensky's performances touched people because he wasn't acting above them. He was one of them. But even while making people laugh, he remained curious. He wanted to understand more about his country. He read books about politics and watched documentaries. He talked to people, taxi drivers, teachers, nurses, students. He listened to their stories. And slowly an idea began to form in his mind. Maybe he could do more than just entertain. In 2015, that idea took shape in a way no one expected. Kvartal-95 launched a new show, Servant of the People. In this show, Zelensky played a history teacher. One day, a student filmed the teacher shouting angrily about corruption in the government. The video went viral. People across the country saw it and were amazed. In the show, that teacher is suddenly elected president of Ukraine. It was meant to be funny, but it wasn't just a joke. The story hit close to home. People were tired of lies, tired of empty promises, tired of leaders who didn't care. In the show, Zelensky's character was honest. He didn't want money or power, he just wanted to help his country. People started to ask, what if a real president could be like that? The show became a massive hit. It ran for 3 seasons. Zelensky was now more than a comedian. He was a symbol. People respected him, not just for his humor, but for his message. Young people talked about politics for the first time. Grandparents who never watched comedy started tuning in. And across the country, people started whispering, what if he ran for real? At first, he laughed. He said he was happy making TV shows. He didn't want the real job, but the whispers grew louder. Fans started writing to him. Please run. We need someone like you. We trust you. Zelensky had spent his life telling stories. Now the people wanted him to write a new one, a real one. Behind the scenes, his team was thinking too. They saw the power of the show. They saw the trust it built. So they created something new. In 2018, they formed a political party. Its name? Servant of the People, just like the show. It was the first time a TV series had given birth to a real political movement. On New Year's Eve, as the clock struck midnight in 2018, Zelensky appeared on TV. Instead of a comedy sketch, he made a serious announcement. He was running for president. The country was shocked. Some people laughed, others cheered. Many didn't know what to think. Could a comedian really lead a country? Zelensky believed he could. And more importantly, he believed the people should decide. He began his campaign not with big promises, but with simple words. He said he wanted to bring honesty back, to fight corruption, to listen, to lead with heart, not ego. His campaign was unlike anything Ukraine had seen. There were no expensive billboards, no flashy events. He used social media. He posted videos talking directly to the people. He asked for their help, their ideas, their stories. He said, "This is not my campaign, it's ours. Slowly, the country started to listen. More and more people joined. They wore t-shirts with his face. They shared his videos. They told their neighbors. Zelenskyy wasn't just a candidate. He was a movement. Other politicians laughed. They said he was a joke, that he had no experience, that he was just playing a role, but Zelenskyy didn't fight back with anger. He stayed calm. He kept his message simple: change, hope, and honesty. And then in 2019, something historic happened. Zelenskyy won, not by a little, but by a landslide. He got over 70% of the vote. People across Ukraine, from big cities to small villages, voted for him. They believed in his dream. They believed it was time for something new. It was one of the most surprising elections in modern history. A comedian had become the president. A man who once made jokes about leaders was now one himself. But he wasn't smiling anymore. He knew the real work was just beginning. As he stood on stage during his first speech, Zelenskyy looked out at the crowd. He thanked them. He promised to serve, and he said something powerful. "I am not here to be great. I am here to be useful." That sentence told the world everything they needed to know. Zelenskyy was serious. He was ready, and he was about to face challenges bigger than anyone could imagine. What came next would test his strength, his faith, and everything he believed in. But that's a story for another part of this journey. For now, remember this. Sometimes the people who understand us best are not the ones with the most power, but the ones with the biggest hearts. The world was watching. A comedian had just become president. Some people thought it was a joke. Others hoped it was the beginning of something new. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, once known for his funny sketches and kind smile, now sat in one of the most serious and difficult seats of power. Leading Ukraine was no longer about laughter. It was about real decisions, real people, and real consequences. From the moment he took office in 2019, Zelenskyy faced challenges. Ukraine had been through years of political trouble. Corruption had taken root deep inside the system. Many citizens had stopped trusting their leaders. The country needed hope, and fast. Zelenskyy knew this. And he also knew that people were watching to see if he would be different. He began with small but important steps. He cut his own salary. He asked government officials to do the same. He opened meetings to the public. He said, "Let the people see what we are doing." He believed that trust came from transparency. No more secrets, no more hiding behind closed doors, but it wasn't easy. The system pushed back. Some politicians didn't like his ideas. They didn't want change. They said he was too young, too inexperienced, too idealistic. Zelenskyy didn't give up. He kept moving forward. He brought in new people, young professionals, not career politicians. His goal was to create a government that worked for the people, not just for itself. And yet, behind every speech and every law, Zelenskyy was learning. He was learning how hard it is to lead. He discovered that real power is not just about giving orders. It's about listening, making tough choices, and facing criticism every day. Still, he remained calm. He smiled even when things were hard. He believed in something bigger than himself, the future of Ukraine. One of his biggest challenges was peace. Since 2014, Ukraine had been in conflict with Russia. Parts of eastern Ukraine were controlled by Russian-backed groups. Thousands had died. Families had been divided. The country was tired of war. Zelenskyy said he would try to end the conflict. He wanted peace. He talked with leaders from Russia, France, and Germany. He met with soldiers. He listened to mothers who had lost their sons. But peace is never simple. Some said he was too soft. Others said he was too bold. Everyone had an opinion. Zelenskyy stayed focused. He knew that real peace wouldn't come overnight. It would take time, patience, and strength. Even as he worked on these serious issues, he never forgot his roots. He stayed close to the people. He visited schools and hospitals. He spoke to children and elderly people. He wanted them to feel heard. In every city he visited, he asked the same question: "What do you need?" He believed leadership was about service, not power. Still, not everything was going well. The economy had problems. The fight against corruption was slow. Some people began to lose hope. They wondered if Zelenskyy was really different. The pressure was growing. Every step he took was followed by cameras, news stories, and critics. But he didn't stop. Then came a turning point that changed everything. In early 2020, the world faced a new crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic. Like all world leaders, Zelenskyy had to act fast. Hospitals were under pressure. Businesses closed. People were scared. Ukraine was not ready for a health crisis of this size, but Zelenskyy didn't hide. He appeared on television, calm and clear. He explained what the government was doing. He asked people to stay strong and stay safe. He helped bring medical supplies to hospitals. He supported families who had lost their income. He worked with other countries to share knowledge and find solutions. The pandemic tested every part of his leadership, and while mistakes were made, like in every country, many people felt he truly cared. At the same time, another battle was happening, a battle against fake news and outside influence. Ukraine had been the target of misinformation for years. Some people tried to divide the country with lies and fear. Zelensky understood the power of media. After all, he had once used it to build his career. Now he used it to protect his country. He fought lies with facts. He gave speeches that were honest, even when the truth was hard. Throughout it all, Zelensky kept his message simple. "We are one people," he said. "We must stay united." He didn't promise miracles, he promised effort, he promised to listen, he promised not to give up. By the end of 2020, people began to see him differently. He wasn't just a former actor trying to play president. He was a man learning and growing in front of the world. He made mistakes, but he admitted them. He faced problems, but he didn't run. He stood tall, even when the ground beneath him was shaking. And then, just as things seemed to be settling, a dark cloud began to rise again. Tensions with Russia were growing. Troops were moving near the borders. The world started to worry. Was another war coming? Zelensky didn't panic. He spoke to world leaders. He warned them. He told the truth. He prepared his people, but he also gave them hope. He said, "We are not afraid. We are ready to defend our home." At that moment, something became clear. Zelensky had changed. He was no longer just a symbol of change. He had become a true leader, one shaped by fire, responsibility, and the love of his people. But the greatest test of his life was still to come, and it would shake not only Ukraine but the entire world. That part of the story is just ahead. It began quietly, like a storm far away. In early 2022, the skies over Ukraine were clear, but the tension on the ground was growing. Russian troops had been gathering near the borders. Tanks, helicopters, and soldiers moved closer and closer. The world watched with worry. Many hoped it was just a threat. Many believed war would not come, but President Volodymyr Zelensky was not so sure. He spoke to his people. He told them to stay calm, but also to stay aware. He said that Ukraine would not start a war, but it would defend itself. He spoke to world leaders. He asked for support, for unity, for action. Some leaders listened. Others waited, and all the while the storm came closer. On February 24, 2022, the storm finally broke. Russia launched a full invasion of Ukraine. Missiles hit cities, tanks rolled across the border. Air raid sirens screamed, people ran to bomb shelters, children cried, families packed bags and fled their homes. It was a day that changed everything. The world expected Zelensky to run. Many leaders in history have fled during war. It is safer, it is easier. But Zelensky did not run, he stayed in Kyiv, the capital. He recorded videos from the city streets. He wore simple clothes, a military green t-shirt, no suit, no tie. He stood with his team and said, "We are here, we are defending Ukraine." Those videos went viral. People around the world saw them and were shocked. Here was a president who refused to leave his people. He was not hiding in a palace. He was standing in the middle of the danger. His voice was calm but firm. His face showed worry but also courage. He became more than a leader, he became a symbol. One of his most powerful moments came just days after the invasion. A foreign government offered to help him escape. They would fly him out of the country to safety. Zelensky refused. He said, "I need ammunition, not a ride." Those words were short, but they were heard around the world. They showed his spirit. He was not giving up. As bombs fell and battles raged, Zelensky worked day and night. He called leaders in Europe, America, and Asia. He asked for help, weapons, money, aid, and support. He spoke in different languages. He addressed parliaments through video. He reminded the world of what was at stake, not just Ukraine's freedom, but the idea of freedom itself. He spoke to the British Parliament and quoted Shakespeare. He spoke to the U.S. Congress and mentioned Martin Luther King Jr. He used history, poetry, and truth to connect with people. His speeches were powerful not because of big words, but because of real emotion. He spoke from the heart. Inside Ukraine, Zelensky kept working. He visited hospitals, met with soldiers, and walked through damaged cities. He hugged children. He cried with mothers. He listened to stories of loss and pain. He carried the weight of the war not just on his shoulders, but in his heart. People trusted him. They saw that he was suffering with them. He had become their voice. The Ukrainian army surprised the world. With Zelensky's leadership, they stood strong. They fought with courage. Civilians joined the defense. Farmers, teachers, and students picked up arms. They built barricades, made meals for soldiers, and helped in any way they could. It was not just a war between two armies. It was a fight for survival. Zelenskyy knew he had to keep the country united. He spoke every night on national TV. He gave updates, shared stories of bravery, and offered hope. He did not pretend everything was fine. He admitted the pain. But he also reminded people of their strength. He said, "We are Ukraine, we do not give up." He also spoke directly to the Russian people. He said, "You are not our enemies. We do not want war, but we will protect our home." He understood that this was not just a battle of weapons, but a battle of truth. He used videos and social media to fight lies with facts. Around the world, people began to take action. They marched in support of Ukraine. They raised money. They sent supplies. Governments placed sanctions on Russia. Artists painted murals of Zelenskyy. News outlets called him the leader of the free world. Time magazine named him Person of the Year. But Zelenskyy never let fame distract him. He said, "I am not a hero. The heroes are the people of Ukraine." Still, the war was long and painful. Cities were destroyed. Lives were lost. Every day brought new challenges. But Zelenskyy did not stop. He pushed for peace, but not at any price. He said, "We want peace, but we will not give up our land. We will not give up our freedom." He also started to think about the future. Even during war, he planned for rebuilding. He said, "We will rise again. Our cities will be rebuilt. Our children will laugh again." He asked for international support to help Ukraine recover. He believed in the strength of his people, and he believed that light would return after the darkness. As the war continued, something had clearly changed. Zelenskyy was no longer the comedian president. He had become the wartime president, strong, brave, honest. He had become the face of Ukraine's resistance. But more than that, he became a global example of leadership in crisis. He reminded the world that true leaders don't run from danger. They walk into it. They speak truth. They fight for others, and they never forget where they came from. Zelenskyy's journey was far from over, but his courage had already left a mark on history. The question now was not whether he was ready to lead. The question was whether the world was ready to follow his example. As the war pushed on, something extraordinary was happening beyond the borders of Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, once seen as a comedian-turned-president, had become a global voice. His speeches were shown on television in dozens of countries. His face appeared on magazine covers. His words echoed in government halls, school classrooms, and online forums around the world. But what made his voice so powerful? It wasn't only the position he held. It was the way he used his words. Zelenskyy didn't speak like a typical politician. He didn't use long, complicated sentences. He spoke simply. He spoke honestly. And he always spoke from the heart. He reminded people of values they believed in: freedom, justice, and human dignity. His voice became a symbol of resistance, a reminder that one voice, if brave enough, could stand against tanks, bombs, and fear. In the early days of the invasion, Zelenskyy began speaking directly to the world. He appeared by video in meetings of the European Union, the United Nations, and NATO. He spoke to the US, Congress, to the British Parliament, and to many others. Sometimes he wore a suit. More often, he wore the same green shirt, simple, strong, clear. In each speech, he tailored his words to the people he was addressing. To the British, he spoke of Winston Churchill and never giving up. To Americans, he talked about 9/11 and the fight for liberty. To Germans, he spoke of the fall of the Berlin Wall and the need for courage. His message was always personal, emotional, and full of purpose. He didn't beg for help. He didn't demand. He asked. He reminded the world of shared struggles. He made people remember their own history and see Ukraine's fight as part of the same human story. For English learners, Zelenskyy's speeches became unexpected lessons in language and leadership. His words were clear. His grammar was simple. His structure was easy to follow, and yet his message carried deep meaning. It was an example of how powerful language can be, even when it's not complicated. Zelenskyy also became a master of social media. He used short videos, daily updates, and powerful visuals. In an age where attention is short, he knew how to hold it. He shared stories of bravery, of farmers stopping tanks, of teachers caring for children during air raids, of doctors working without rest. He made the war real for people far away. He showed that this was not just about Ukraine. It was about all of us. Celebrities and world leaders praised him, but Zelenskyy stayed grounded. He often reminded the world that the true heroes were not on screens. They were in the streets, the fields, the hospitals. He said, "I'm proud to be part of our people." Not above them, with them. One of the key reasons people listened to him was because he told the truth, even when it hurt. He didn't hide Ukraine's pain. He showed bombed-out buildings, destroyed schools, and crying families. He didn't cover the losses. He honored them. He said the names of fallen soldiers. He visited wounded civilians. He stood in the ruins and promised they would rebuild. Zelenskyy also showed that leadership is about connection. He didn't just speak to governments. He spoke to students, workers, volunteers, and even children. He answered their questions. He encouraged them. He made them feel seen. In many ways, he had become a teacher again, not of history, as in his old TV show, but of hope, unity, and courage. He taught people how to face fear with dignity, how to hold on to values even in the worst times, how to believe in tomorrow. And around the world, people responded. Cities lit their buildings in blue and yellow, the colors of Ukraine's flag. People donated money. Refugees were welcomed. Artists painted murals of Ukrainian fighters. Schools raised awareness. Zelenskyy's voice was reaching places even bombs could not. But for all his international fame, he never forgot where he came from. He continued to speak Ukrainian in his national addresses. He continued to walk among his people. He kept his circle small, filled with people he trusted. He didn't seek comfort. He chose to share the hardships. In one video, he stood in the streets of Kiev at night. Behind him were government buildings and empty roads. The lights were low. He looked into the camera and said, "We are all here, our soldiers are here, our people are here, we are defending our independence." Those words became part of history. He had become more than a leader of a nation. He had become the spirit of a people, their fear, their fight, their fire. And he carried that spirit with strength. Across the globe, young people started to learn about Ukraine, not just from the news, but through language lessons, music, stories, and culture. They learned words like bravery, resistance, and solidarity. And many of those lessons began with the voice of one man. Zelenskyy had shown the world that leadership is not about being perfect. It's about being present. It's not about always knowing the answers, but about asking the right questions. Not about being unshakable, but about standing tall even when you shake. In classrooms and living rooms, his speeches were replayed. Not just for politics, but as examples of how to speak with purpose. He had proven something powerful, that the right words at the right time from the right person can change the course of history. And the story of that voice, so clear, so human, was far from over. The war dragged on. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And still, Volodymyr Zelenskyy stood strong. But even as the fighting continued, a new question began to form in the minds of people around the world. What comes next? For Ukraine, victory was not just about pushing back the enemy. It was also about rebuilding homes, rebuilding schools, rebuilding trust. And Zelenskyy knew that this would be just as hard as defending the country. Maybe harder. He started to speak not only of war, but of the future. He said that Ukraine would be stronger than ever. Cleaner cities, smarter schools, a better health system. He said, "We are not just fighting to survive. We are fighting to live better lives." Zelenskyy met with world leaders to discuss reconstruction. He asked for plans, not just promises. He spoke of solar energy, digital innovation, and modern housing. He imagined a country that could become an example for others, a nation that turned tragedy into transformation. But rebuilding a country at war is not easy. Roads are broken. Budgets are tight. People are tired. Some had left the country. Others had lost family. The wounds were fresh. And yet Zelenskyy spoke of hope every day. He reminded Ukrainians that even after the darkest night, the sun rises again. He launched programs to support war orphans, widows, and wounded soldiers. He worked to improve mental health support. He encouraged schools to reopen, even if only online. He visited rebuilding sites and met with engineers and planners. He called this time not the end, but the beginning. Zelenskyy's speeches changed, too. They became more reflective, more personal. He talked about the cost of freedom. He said every generation must defend its right to be free. This is our time. And the world listened. More countries pledged to help. International organizations sent experts and equipment. Donations poured in, not just money, but books, art, medical tools, and more. Schools across Europe held Ukraine Days. Children drew pictures and wrote letters to Ukrainian students. In the middle of it all, Zelenskyy remained present, tired but focused. He had lost friends. He had seen death. But he had also seen bravery, kindness, and the unbreakable will of his people. He often said, "I do not lead a country. I serve its spirit." Zelenskyy became more than a wartime president. He became a peacetime planner, a father of a new vision. He pushed for Ukraine to join the European Union. He called for unity not just in politics but in purpose. He wanted Ukraine to stand tall in the family of free nations. At home, people began to think of life beyond the war. They opened new cafes. Artists painted walls with colors of hope. Couples got married. Babies were born. Life found a way to continue. And in every small act of normal life, Zelenskyy saw victory. He never claimed to be perfect. He admitted when things went wrong. He said leadership was about learning. He didn't hide from mistakes. He used them to grow. That honesty made people trust him even more. In interviews, when asked how he stayed strong, he said, "I look at my people. I take strength from them. As long as they fight, I must stand." And so, the journey of a boy from Kryvyi Rih, who once told jokes on stage, had become a man who stood before the world as a symbol of courage, truth, and transformation. Zelenskyy's story is not finished. History is still writing its pages. The war is not over. The rebuilding continues. But one thing is clear: he changed the way the world sees leadership, not as something you take, but something you give. He reminded us all that true power does not come from a title. It comes from service, from sacrifice, from standing beside your people when it would be easier to run. And maybe, most of all, from believing that even in the worst of times, there is still something worth fighting for. That is the legacy of Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and that is the lesson we must never forget. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey through the life of Volodymyr Zelenskyy. We hope this story helped you not only practice your English, but also inspired you with a real example of courage, leadership, and hope. What new words did you learn today? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who are learning English too. And remember, every story is a chance to grow your language skills and your understanding of the world. See you in the next video.